All righty, gentlemen.
Dun, 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 dun.
Good Bucks or bad Celtics? What's this series about?
Horrible Celtics. Kyrie Irving hasn't had a worse three-game stretch in the playoffs in his career. Think about it. Your best player is playing his worst he's ever played in postseason. No team in any sport is going to win when your best player is giving you his worst ever. 2, Gordon Hayward. What the hell is Brad Stevens allowing him still to go out there on rehab duty for 27 minutes and giving them 2 points? They're getting outscored by the bench. Giannis in foul trouble. Then all of a sudden we put the bench out there and they widen the lead. And last but not least, I have to go to coach, the genius, Brad Stevens, mismanaging not only the minutes but the personalities. You got guys sitting there saying, Kyrie get free reign, taking minutes, taking shots, bricking it up, and I want to try to get mine. So it's just really a circus affair out there in Boston. It's all bad Boston.
If there's one guy that they're missing, it's Marcus Smart to me. But
he played last night.
To your point,
He's the difference?
to me, he could be because you need some leadership in that locker room. That is what they're missing, and they're not getting it from Brad Stevens, and they're not getting it from Kyrie Irving. I can't separate the two. You know, we talk about players being set-up guys, or we talk about them being closers. The same applies with coaches. And we have anointed Brad Stevens as a great coach already because he took underachieving teams, under-talented teams
Stop it.
to the Eastern Conference Finals the last 2 years.
Took Butler to back-to-back
That's right.
national champions.
That's
The man
right.
can coach.
That's
now.
right.
Stop it.
There's a difference between coaching Butler and coaching teams that are missing stars or in a bad Eastern Conference. You go back to 2000, I don't want to go back too much history, but you go back to 2016-17 when they went to the conference finals the first time and they had a bunch of no-names. If Rajon Rondo doesn't get hurt, they are a first seed that's getting knocked out by the 8th-seeded Chicago Bulls.
we're down to-
It took them 7 games to get past the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
And then they got run by a Cleveland Cavaliers team that, by the way, couldn't stand up to the Golden State Warriors. So how good are they really, and how good is Brad Stevens? There's a distinction between coaching decent guys and making them very good or overachievers, and then there's coaching talent. You have to be a psychologist more than an X's and O's guy. And that is what they are missing with this team. Kyrie Irving has not been a leader. That was only more evidence of it. I should have taken 8 more shots. Your decision-making was horrendous. I'm not talking about the number of shots you took. I'm talking about when you took them. You're down by double digits, and now you're going 1-on-3. Even if you make that shot, it's not a good shot. They're not getting it from Kyrie. They're not getting it from Brad. Marcus Smart is I'm throwing myself a lifeline here because he's the one guy who has shown me in the past that in the playoffs that he can be a leader in difficult situations, and he's not 100%.
Well, here's the issue, too. To me, it's all about Milwaukee, but let me kind of extend your point. Early in the year, when Boston was struggling, we had a game, and we covered Boston and Philly. And I said the challenge with Brad Stevens is he has to deal with these egos. He hasn't had to deal with that before. He had guys that would buy in to what he was selling because marginally they weren't as talented. So they bought in, Butler and early on in Boston. Now you got to deal with all these egos. So during the regular season, you're managing minutes, you're managing injuries, and you're managing ego, okay? Now you get to the point here, people expect that all of a sudden it was supposed to come back together for Boston. No. This Milwaukee Bucks team has been doing this all year. Their average margin of victory is the highest in the league. Their bench has been producing. The guys have gotten better and settled into their role. So as much as it's about Boston playing bad, forget that. It's about how good this Milwaukee team is based on what they've done all year. Again, they weren't sexy enough during the course of the year because the storylines wasn't there outside of Giannis, like Boston and like Toronto.
But, Jimmy, there was a game 1. And for whatever.
But that's okay.
There was a game 1.
But you know what?
And what flipped it? And what flipped it? What
It's
flipped it?
3-1 right now. Because you know what? They got their feet wet and they understood how to attack and play this Boston team. Okay, Boston did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
They came in and got it. Now you're talking about coaching, making adjustments, bench playing better, guys understanding playoff basketball. Now they settled in and said, you know what? I'm going to invert our big man. I'm going to let Giannis go to work. If he doesn't have a good game, these are the guys that are stepping up.
And that's without Brogdon.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
50, 40, 90.
Brad, in Game 4, called timeouts every time you needed a timeout. The problem was they would come out of the timeout, and the problem wasn't fixed. They still were going each one-on-one.
Yep.
There was no continuity in their offense. And defensively,
Why are we
if they
blaming
show
Kyrie more than Brad?
because there's never been a pecking order established in terms of if we're going to go with Kyrie. I kind of agree with him in this. If Kyrie's going to be your guy and you're going to let him go and do what he's going to do, then let him go. But the problem is he'll do it. He'll take a couple of shots. Okay, well, Jason Tatum's now going to take a shot. Now Jaylen Brown's going to take a shot. They were all going one-on-one. If I'm going to go with my best player, then I'm going to establish this is my best player and I'm going that approach. There is no hierarchy. And I've been told by someone close to the Celtics that Brad doesn't establish a pecking order. That's what I was waiting for all year. You have this collection of guys, all who feel that they should play a certain role. But you know what? Not everybody gets to play the role that they think they should. And if I watch one more highlight of Giannis Antetokounmpo stepping hard right and spinning back left, and the second defender is 6 feet away, he's not going to stop and hit a step back. He's going one direction when he makes that move, and the Celtics collectively cannot stop that. I'm sorry. That, to me, is coaching. Or it's, I can't get through to my players what I need them to do at the defensive end. I hate putting it all on the coaches because it is a players' league. But in this case, the talent is not living up to what they're capable of doing, and it's because of how they're executing. And that I am going to put on Brad Stevens' plate.
The pecking order, I think, is a lot harder to establish when Kyrie missed so much last season.
Yep.
Agreed.
And then they had the success, and he comes back. And so it's hard to establish a pecking order. We just had success without you. So, again, it sounds like I'm making excuses for Brad Stevens, but, man, his resume is pretty damn strong at both levels. And so you got one guy that thinks the earth is flat and a lot of other things. He's a different dude.
Yeah.
He thinks that he's a little bit harder to reach than others. And he's not 6'10", 6'11". When you're 6'10", 6'11", 6'9", like LeBron, it's easier to set a pecking order. You see that big dude over there, Giannis, LeBron, KD? That's our pecking order.
You know what? But they're not getting beat just by Giannis. They're getting beat by their
George
ancillary.
Hill.
George Hill was more of a genius in this last
great
game.
I mean,
Pat Connaughton. I mean, they're getting it from a lot of different places. So this idea that it's all on Kyrie, I go back to this. The Celtics, if you give me the two rosters, the Celtics have the better roster. But they are not playing like it.
Yeah, they're playing less than the sum of its parts, which always puts the onus on the coach because you have the collective group. I would tell you, just being in that locker room, if I were there and I saw Gordon Hayward getting 26 minutes a game because of business reasons and we're trying to get him back in order, I understand that. But if you're coming off the bench and you have to earn the minutes you get because there are other guys who are taking less minutes who deserve them. So when you see them not helping on defense and the disinterest and them not playing with the toughness of Houston, it's because guys are sitting there like they're really disgruntled and they're acting it out on the court. When they face adversity, you can see it through every run, through every timeout, fix the problem. You don't respond to adversity when you're disinterested.
We're going to get to it later in the show because there's a factor here that we're not talking about that we're going to talk about later. But when your star player has spent all year flirting about where he may play next year, that makes things a little harder too.